Hello, everybody. This is Tim here again to another movie review. This time for Morbius. Now, I just want to say this is a review for Morbius. Now, this film is part of the Sonyverse. For people that don't know, Sony still has the rights to Spider-Man, so in a deal with pretty much Disney, who owns Marvel, and a deal with them, Marvel and them get to use Spider-Man to do movies with him, while Sony gets to make like spin-off flicks, like solo movies, just about like the other side Spider-Man characters, like say Morbius and Venom and Kraven the Hunter, which is upcoming with Aaron Taylor Johnson. Now, just to jump into these films, there's a lot of like hatred for these Sony films by like hardcore Marvel fans who just like really love the MCU and just like hate everything that Sony's putting its hands on in terms of their films with these Spider-Man spin-off things and all that. And there's like a lot of internet hate for this movie. There was a lot of internet hate for both the Venom movies too, and those movies made a lot of money. Now this film also seems to be doing like really well in terms of box office, like in terms of like the screenings. I believe it's already made 5.7 million, and it only costs like what was it, like 75 million? Yeah, I believe. So he should make that back easily just with overseas money easily. This is going to be a hit. Um, Now, as far as like the movie goes, critics seem to be trampling on this movie. Audiences seem to be split. Like if you look at the score on Rotten Tomatoes, audience-wise, I think it's like a 64 last time I checked, which is kind of divisive for people. People either kind of like it or they don't like it. It's kind of split down the middle. Um, Now, as far as my feelings of these Sony films, the first Venom movie I liked. I'd give it a 3 out of 4. I thought it was a solid, good, fun movie. These Sony films are much more smaller scale comic book flicks. Not big like epics and all that, like some of the Avengers movies and MCU movies and even DC movies and stuff are. I would give it a 3 out of 4. It's a good flick. It's fine for the Sonyverse. It's a good movie. I liked it. It's a fun movie. It's pretty much a comedy. Venom and Tom Hardy is hilarious. Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. A lot of people prefer the first. I like Venom 2 slightly better than Part 1 just because it had Woody Harrelson there. For what they're doing with these two Venom movies, I think both are fine. Both 3 out of 4 funny, fine comedy action flicks, which is what they are. This movie Morbius is much more serious. If you don't like the goofy tone of those two Venom movies, you may like Morbius better. It's a much more straightforward, like vampire movie. This is not a superhero comic book film. This is a vampire action flick through and through, straight up. And there's much more blood here than it was in either Venom movies. There's like one scene here of more blood in it than either Venom flick. This movie's not like overflowing with blood or anything, but I'll just go ahead and say it. There is an all right amount of blood in the film for a PG-13 rating. Now, as far as the film goes, how would I rank it? Once again, for the next Sony film, I'd give it a 3 out of 4. I found this to be a good vampire action film. I don't see what all the fuss is about, why critics are hating this film so bad. It's fine. I like the film. Jared Leto's acting is great in the film as Morbius. He does a great job being the sickly type Morbius and in his transformation to the supernatural vampire one. But once again, this is not a superhero flick. I just want to stress that. This is a vampire action film straight up. This fits much better in the vampire genre than it does in any kind of like comic book superhero movie. So if you go in expecting that, you really may not like it. But if you go in knowing that this is just a vampire flick, I think it's good. It's totally fine for a PG-13 vampire flick. This is a good movie. I liked it. It's not anything mind-blowing. There are some problems. The beginning of the film, you got Matt Smith's like younger version of his character, Lucius or Luxius Crown or whatever. Matt Smith does a great job here as well as the villain. He's fun when he's on screen. And you get him here like bonding with Morbius when they're children. Some of the scenes are a little choppy, like when they're talking, they're showing other scenes or whatever where they're like hanging out together and all that, like from when they first meet. It is a little weirdly edited together, but it's not anything terrible. And when it gets to like the scene on the boat where they inject Morbius or Michael Morbius, whatever, Jared Leto with this bat DNA that he's splicing in himself so he becomes the living vampire. He gets his supernatural powers and he kills everybody on the boat. They make sure to tell you that the people on the boat are douchebags, but at the same time, he is killing people. So yeah, he starts off murdering people when he first transforms until he's able to start getting more control of it. And the visuals in this film for a vampire action flick, I thought were actually cool. Seeing Morbius like glide with the wind and shit, that was kind of cool. And when he's like using his echolocation like sonar, that was cool. There's some cool visuals here, like when the two vampires are fighting later. Of course, Matt Smith becomes the villain. That is a little rote. The story here is a little generic in terms of a superhero origin movie, but a lot of superhero films have that generic thing where the friend becomes the enemy or whatever. He goes mad with power once he transforms, and he wants to just take vengeance on everybody, and he doesn't care about sucking everybody's blood and crap. The girl who plays Jared Leto's love interest, who's like his doctor or whatever, this fellow doctor that's helping him out, she does a good job as well. She's also really likable. She has good chemistry with Jared Leto, and Matt Smith has good chemistry with him too. Jared Harris is like their kind of father figure who's teaching them and stuff. He does a good job as well. He's not in the movie too much, but when he's there, he's good. Matt Smith starts taking everybody out, and they start blaming it on Jared Leto's character. And the transformation when Jared Leto goes full vampire, it looks completely comic book accurate. It's pretty good looking. Morbius is much more of a Blade character than he is a Spider-Man character. Like, I'm pretty sure he comes from Blade comics, but later on they just kind of threw him into the Spider-Man universe. But yeah, he's much more of a Blade type character. And when they fight, you get like when they're like flying through the sky and stuff, you get like this cool like smoke and stuff that's coming behind them and all that. Pretty cool little visual effects. I like the visuals here in terms of the vampire action. And of course, the Matt Smith's character's taking everybody out. Jared Leto has to eventually take him out by the end, and Matt Smith like pretty much wounds Jared Leto's girlfriend, and he has to drain her. But spoiler, of course, this is all spoilers. By the end, you find out that she actually wasn't drained completely, and she's been bitten by Jared Leto. So now she's going to become a living vampire. And if you hear a dog in the background, it's just my dog. I'm outside doing this after just seeing the movie. But yeah, she's going to become a living vampire as well for the sequel. But yeah, Jared Leto does a great job at playing the character. He's got some funny lines here. It's much more dry, subtle humor, but it really works in terms of the character and how he's presented in the movie. He has like the Hippocratic Oath or whatever because he's a doctor, so he doesn't want to kill people, which is understandable. And he's going around and he fights these people, and he's like breaking this guy's hand, and he's like, there's like so many bones in the human hand, that's one, that's two, or whatever. It's a pretty funny scene. He does that I'm Venom joke, but you don't get the other extended version of the scene where he's in the trailer where he goes, I'm just kidding, man, it's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service. They cut that out for some reason, and it doesn't play as well here with him just saying I am Venom or whatever. It just kind of comes off lame. They should have kept the rest of the line in there. It does feel like this film's been tinkered with just a little bit, like they've edited out a little bit of stuff, and it does feel like they've tried to fast forward through the origin a little bit too much. Yeah, and then when you get to the end, of course, it's a standoff between him and his ex-best friend, Matt Smith's character, and they got to fight, and he's developed like this anti-serum or whatever that'll kill him if he injects him with it. They get into a fight, and Jared Leto's getting beat up, and he has the ability to mind meld with bats, so Jared Leto summons this big army of bats, and he uses them actually in battle, which is pretty cool visual-wise, and he uses them to like plow into him and hit him and knock him into a wall and shit, and knocks Matt Smith down, and that's when he injects him, and he pretty much, you get the you get the standard goodbye friend thing where he's saying goodbye to his friend as he's dying, and they're saying goodbye to each other because they still care about each other. And one thing I will say is, despite the fact that the origin stuff at the beginning is kind of rushed through, when the actors actually talk to each other, they have good chemistry. Jared Leto has good chemistry with Matt Smith. They both do good jobs here. That you really buy into it about their friendship. And then when it gets to the end or whatever, and he's dead. Morbius takes off, or Matt Smith is dead. Morbius takes off flying through the air, Batman Begins style, like literal Batman, and he flies through the air with the bats and like glides with the wind, and you see him flying, and all at once it's skips back to his girlfriend laying in the pool or whatever, and she's laying there pretty much dead looking. Then her eyes open up. She's got like the same type of bat type eyes as Jared Leto had when he transformed. As a vampire action flick, this was good. It was totally harmless, fine fun. I would easily pick this up on Blu-ray. This film was harmless. I thought Jared Leto did a great job here. He suited this character much more than he did the Joker. Now I don't hate his Joker. Like, I feel like in terms of that DC universe for what they were building with Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, I feel like his Joker works for that world, like as this edgy modern gangster and all that. But he feels much more at home with this character. This character feels just way more appropriate for Jared Leto and his charisma and stuff. It just feels way more like just him, if you know what I'm saying. Charisma wise and everything. And Jared Leto does a really good job here. Like, he's a great character actor. He really immerses himself into a character, however it's written on the page. And he does a great job here. When you see him as an actor in a movie playing a character, you don't see Jared Leto, you see the character. And that's one thing, whatever movies of his you like or don't like or performance wise, you never see Jared Leto, you see the character. He does a great job here as Morbius. And from what I see, this film's going to do well, so we're probably going to get a Morbius 2, or he'll at least be back in the Sinister Six movie or whatever. Now, I'll say this again, this is not like an epic movie, just like the other two Sony movies, Venom 1 and 2. This is a much more smaller scale comic book film, much more like Ant-Man or something like that, like the first Ant-Man and all that, which makes sense. Yeah, there doesn't need to be like some kind of world-threatening Morbius movie or whatever, like end of the world movie. That'd be too much. As a vampire action flick, once again, 3 out of 4. I enjoyed it. I don't see any real big problems with this movie. Some editing choices are a little off. The origin is a little bit rushed through at the beginning, but the actors do a really good job, and Jared Leto made me sympathetic for his character. I enjoyed seeing him on screen. I liked seeing Matt Smith on screen. The chick who plays the love interest was good. Jared Harris was good. Tyrese Gibson is in here as a cop. He's good. He's fine. He's got a partner who cracks a lot of jokes. That dude was fine. They totally did good. Yeah, all in all, a good, harmless, 3-star vampire action flick. Nothing amazing or mind blowing, but a good time. I was totally fine with this movie. Um, but yeah, as like a Blade character, side character, spinoff movie or whatever, which is also like a Spider-Man villain or whatever, or anti-hero in the Spider-Man world too. But this guy fits much more in the Blade world. Let's be honest, he's a vampire. Yeah, it's like a Blade character, side character, spinoff movie. This is a good flick as a vampire action film. It's fine. I've seen way worse than this. I like this movie better than I did some MCU flicks. I would rather watch this any day over Captain Marvel or Thor 2. Um, any day. Now, the 2 bonus scenes at the end of the film. Oh, one other thing. Well, 2 things. One thing is, I would have liked it if there would have been a little bit more vampire action at the end. I like that it's a much more smaller scale film, but I would have liked it if Matt Smith's character would have turned to maybe a few more people, and Jared Leto would have had to have like fought them at the end, and he would have been like, taking them out or whatever by injecting them with that same stuff and killing them by the time he got to Matt Smith's character for the final fight. That probably would have been cool. But other than that, the 2 bonus scenes at the end, one of them is like a mid-credit scene where it's a Vulture arriving in a prison cell due to Doctor Strange's spell. Apparently, it had some kind of side effect where the Vulture, Adrian Toomes' character, Michael Keaton, gets transported from the Tom Holland world to this world. Now, I've heard some people complain, like, oh no, they got rid of Vulture from the MCU. I never thought Vulture was... He was in one friggin' movie. I mean, is he that amazing? It never felt like they were building Vulture up to be anything. He was in one movie. Spider-Man Homecoming, that's it. That's a stupid complaint to me. Besides that, it is a little bit iffy. It is a plot hole, pretty much, about how he gets there, because it doesn't really make much sense, because the spell was pretty much to reset everything and fix all the universe stuff at the end of No Way Home, so why is he there? We're just going to have to believe that it's some kind of side effect. They can just explain it in the next movie, of course. It's a fantasy comic book world. It can just be explained in the next movie. The second bonus scene, this one was pretty weak. I like the idea for what it's trying to set up. Michael Keaton shows up to meet Morbius, Jared Leto, and Jared Leto shows up there, and he's like, I'm putting together a team of people with special abilities or whatever. And Jared Leto looks at him, he's like, intriguing. It looked like it was really slapped together. They don't even look like they're even in like the same sequence together. It just kind of feels really thrown together, like at the last minute. It felt really weak. But yeah, so apparently they're setting together some kind of Sinister Six thing where maybe they'll be fighting Spider-Man. Of course, Venom's going to be on the team or whatever. Or they'll go off and do like missions together or some shit and like solve some kind of world crisis or fight some bigger villain. Who knows? They're building to like some kind of Avengers level movie Sony is or whatever. So yeah, so far I think this altogether, like I said, 3 out of 4, just the same thing I gave the other 2 Venom movies. I think this is a good vampire flick. The other 2 Venom movies I thought were good action comedies. In terms of how I would rank the films, I would say for me, Venom 2 so far has been my favorite still, because I really enjoyed Woody Harrelson in the movie as Carnage. For what the Sony films are doing as these being solo films, for a solo Venom and Carnage movie, comedy action flick, it was fine. That one's been my favorite so far, just for having Woody Harrelson. Second favorite would be Morbius, and then my third favorite would be Venom 1. But yeah, I like all 3 of these movies. I think they're all fine. They're fine films. There's nothing mind-blowing about these Sony films. There's nothing groundbreaking about them. But in terms of what they are, and just these side character spin-off films or whatever, smaller scale comic book-based movies, I think they're fine. So I'm looking forward to Kraven the Hunter. So far, all these films have been fine. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again.